Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the NWR Virtual Conference Series 11. I'm your host, Banjo Blake, and next up we have AssetOwl. AssetOwl, together with its subsidiaries, engages in the development of technology and software in Australia. It offers Inspector 360, photo-centric property management platform designed for residential real estate sector, which provides photographic record of the state of the property. AssetOwl has a scalable cloud-based platform which provides quantum improvements in the efficiency and quality of real estate inspections and sales. Speaking on behalf of AssetOwl today is CEO Geoff Goldsmith. Geoff comes from a managerial background in consulting and business development, taking over AssetOwl in 2021. I'd like to now hand over to you. Thanks, Geoff.
Thanks, Banjo. Thanks for your time. If you just move to the first slide, please.
Yep, no worries.
Right, look, guys, time is obviously very short, so very quickly I'll start with an overview of the Australian residential market, focusing on property management and property inspections in particular. We'll then give you a quick outline of what our platform does and why we think it's the platform that will disrupt the industry as we see it today. We'll quickly talk about highlights from 2021, which obviously leads us into 2022, what our ambition is for the year, and needless to say, there's a lot happening. And we'll finish up with investment highlights before we take any questions. Next slide, please. So just quickly, the Australian rental market, it's no surprise, is an enormous market. There's approximately 2.5 million rentals throughout Australia, worth a very large sum of money. Investment properties, which is what we're talking about, are very important to households, and for many households, they're the cornerstone of their financial strategy in their search for financial security in the long term. Clearly, investment properties are underpinned by tenancy agreements, and those tenancy agreements in turn are underpinned by property inspections. So for those of us who have forgotten what it's like to rent, or certainly I'm a renter, but many people have forgotten, there is a rigorous regime of property inspections throughout the course of a tenancy. There are three types of property inspections. The first are property condition reports, or entry inspections. They document the condition of the property upon the start of a tenancy. Then throughout the lifetime of a tenancy, you would have a number of inspections known as routine inspections. In the case of Western Australia, there are 4 routine inspections a year. East Coast states tends to be closer to 2 property inspections a year. And then at the end of the property inspection, of a tenancy, you have what's called an exit inspection or final bond inspection. They basically document the condition of the property at the end of the tenancy. You then compare that with the condition at the start, and that will determine how much, or if any, of the bond that the tenants will get back at the end of the tenancy. So clearly, rental inspections are a very important part of a tenancy agreement. However, they do create friction between all parties. So it's these rental inspections that bring together the key stakeholders of a tenancy, namely the renters, tenants, the owners, the property managers that do the inspections, and of course their bosses, the agency principals. If they're done well, then clearly there's no animosity between the parties. If they break down, it can eventually lead to court disputes. Next slide, please. So as we said, it's these inspections that bring together various parties to the tenancy, various stakeholders. And we believe the current inspection tools fail to address key concerns of each of these stakeholders. So let's take these stakeholders one by one. First of all, you have the property managers. They're the ones that manage the properties on behalf of the property owners. High stress role, they're very much the meat in the sandwich between the owners and the tenants. And they also have to manage the relationship with their bosses, namely the principals. So they're poorly served, we think, by existing tools, and often in the course of their job, they end up in court disputes. So we have a good tenant where they're supported by a good inspection tool. Clearly their life is a lot easier. Then you have the agency principals. They are the owners of the real estate agents. They have 2 key concerns. Firstly, they're looking to grow their rent roll. So obviously if they have a good reputation of managing properties well, they'll be able to do that. That's the net asset backing, if you like, of their business. And secondly, they're concerned about the HR perspective, the welfare of their property managers, maintaining staff morale, and where they can, reduce turnover. It is a high turnover industry. Next, we have the property owners. They obviously have a lot at stake with their property. It's the single biggest asset typically that they own. Yet they're very disempowered because they don't get to see their asset over the course of the tenancy. So they're very anxious about the state of their property. And again, with the right inspection platform, we can alleviate that anxiety. Finally, of course, last but by no means least, you have the tenants. They are subject to a very onerous regime of property inspections. It's time consuming. It can be stressful. We all know what it's like having to tidy up our house prior to an inspection. And obviously there's a high degree or high risk of dispute with property agents if the inspection process is not transparent. Next slide, please. So what do we do at Pirsee? We basically digitise the property inspection process. So we create a very photo-centric and comprehensive inspection report. We believe it's a higher quality than what our competitors have to offer. We streamline entry routine and in particular exit reports. Tenants do have the option of reviewing and signing digitally, which again is not so intrusive as the old paper-based method and certainly more time-consuming. And importantly, our tool is accessible on any device, mobile, tablet, Apple or Android devices. So we are aiming to reduce report quality. We're aiming to maintain data security, and we believe we can deliver significant time savings for inspections and property managers, which for their owners, I should say for real estate principals, means we deliver productivity benefits to their business. Next slide, please. So there's a wide range of tech advantages that our platform delivers. I'll just focus on 4 of the key ones here, the ones that set us apart. First of all, we're integrated with 360-degree panoramic cameras, which none of our competition are integrated with. What it means is, along with your mobile phone, you can also use a 3D camera to take 3D virtual photos of the house, room by room, which in turn means you can create a virtual tour. What that means, and we'll go into more detail, it means it reduces the time on the ground that property managers spend compiling their entry reports, and it creates a much higher quality report that is shorter and more usable for both tenants and owners alike. The second key tech feature is data syncing. We do have live syncing on our platform, so you can have 2 or 3 property managers working on larger properties at the same time. That potentially has productivity benefits, it potentially has safety benefits, but it also means you can have their supervisors back in the office having live access to what they're doing. So if they've got any questions, they can revert back to the head office and save time that way. Our exit inspections, we believe, are market leading. It's an area that's been neglected over the last couple of years. And again, it's an opportunity to deliver significant productivity benefits for these real estate offices. And finally, data migration. We do have a mature data migration service. If you think about it, every customer that we win is a customer that's been serviced by another product or old paper-based systems. We have a service where we migrate that data onto our platform so that it's captured and it's safe and it can be used or built upon in future inspections. Next slide, please. So 2021 was a very busy and ambitious year. At the start of last year, we had 2 customers. We now have approximately 40 on our platform. That's paying plus trial customers. So we've basically gone to market. We've started that rollout system. We've been focused on WA. If I summarise what our achievements were in 2021, firstly, we started to demonstrate that we can deliver value to our customers. Secondly, we've demonstrated an accelerating uptake. And thirdly, we have managed to achieve a number of product milestones. And I'll elaborate on each of these as we go. Next slide, please. So if we talk about delivering value, how do we do that? Well, we do that in a number of ways. The quality of our reports, we believe anecdotally will reduce court dispute time. But importantly and more tangibly, we save time on the ground. So depending on what sort of work practices agents had before signing onto our platform, we believe for a typical 4-bedroom house, we'll save at least 2 hours on their inspection. Clearly, you can multiply that by the number of entry inspections you do. So for a mid-size agent, you can see there how many inspections they do per annum, and you can put a price tag to that, $40 an hour. And we believe we offer compelling commercial value to our customers. Next slide, please. Talked about the rollout. As we discussed, we had 2 paying customers at the start of last year. That's grown to, at the end of the year, 40 combined paying and trialling customers. We've been very much focused on WA, although we do have a Victorian compliant product. With respect to WA, we are clearly starting to gain traction. So you can see the market share there as judged by properties. Also, what's quite exciting is we're clearly attractive to a range of different customers, both from your very small boutique type firms to your large franchises and your large individual operators. So, that's obviously promising for what's going to happen in the future. Next slide. Thanks. I won't dwell on this slide. Clearly, our product development is going to be an ongoing process. Continuous improvement will never finish. There are a number of key milestones that we hit last year. Introduction to Victoria. We rebranded our product to Pirsee. We developed our PDF Word migration, and we expanded our infrastructure capacity in preparation for scaling up on the East Coast. Next slide, please. So what's on the agenda for 2022? Well, we've already started off with a bit of a rush. The first couple of months we were focusing very much on capital raising. We've just completed that. Approximately $2.2 million was raised, which is very pleasing given the current economic and geopolitical environment with problems in Europe that we all know about, rising interest rates in both the US and now Australia. So it's good to have that money in the bank, which sets us up for the rest of the year. For the remainder of this half of 2022, we'll be preparing for our New South Wales and Queensland entry. And importantly, what we're doing at the moment is we are capturing all the feedback we've had from our West Australian customers to make sure that our product is as good and shipshape as it possibly can be for our entry into the Queensland and New South Wales states. As you can see, June, December of this year, we'll actually enter those states. We'll explore New Zealand expansion, and we'll look at commercialising our data migration. Next slide, please. So just to finish off, there are a number of investment highlights that we think make us an attractive proposition. Firstly, we provide a non-discretionary service in the property industry, and the property industry is highly defensive. You cannot do without rental inspections. As long as there are rentals, there will be rental inspections. As long as there are rental inspections, there'll be a need for a platform like ours. We're targeting a very fragmented industry, and it's poorly serviced by existing products. Therefore, it's ripe for disruption. We believe we've got a market-leading product. We've got a nice mix of industry relationships which is technology-led. We're at the start of our journey. There's a clear growth runway in the short, medium, and long term. And based on our share price, which clearly we want to do better than where we are now, we offer a very interesting value proposition. That's over to you, Banjo, for any questions.
Perfect. Thanks a lot for the presentation, Geoff. It was great to get an insight into the Pirsee technology and the AssetOwl business model. We've got time for one question. Is the product suite now fully integrated, or do you see a need for further development to respond to the feedback of agents and managers?
I'm not too sure what you mean by that question. If you mean, are we integrated with Property Me and Property Tree? Yes, we are. They would cover 80% of the market. The other 20% is quite fragmented. We have an open API. We're willing to integrate with anyone. It's just a matter of when those other parties or trust tools are ready to integrate. With respect to the feedback of real estate agents, we are incorporating the majority of that major feedback in the first half of this year. But that improvement process will never finish. I mean, there are 10,000 real estate agents. Each have got their own suggestions, and those, where that feedback has a critical mass, we'll act on it as quickly as we can.
Perfect. That's all the time we have. Thanks a lot, Geoff, for your time, and appreciate your insight into AssetOwl.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.